You gave all your money to a stranger, Sarah. This ranch doesn't run on kindness. The words thundered in Sarah Miller's mind, her parents' voices sharp as barbed wire. Yet there she stood, unwavering, hands trembling as she pressed her last $2,000 into the calloused palms of a veteran she barely knew. Why? Because his baby was sick, his family teetering on the edge of ruin. She thought she was trading her ranch, her whole world, just to keep a stranger's home intact. Oh, how little she knew. The barn loomed empty before her, its silence deafening. Her horses, ribs jutting out like cruel shadows, nickered faintly, and Sarah braced herself to let them go. But then, what's this? 3 military trucks roared into her dusty driveway, kicking up clouds of hope she didn't dare breathe in. And out stepped him, the man she'd helped, now in crisp uniform, a figure tied to something vast and unimaginable. Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where kindness isn't just a gesture, it's a spark that sets miracles ablaze. Let's dive into what really unfolded, shall we? Maggie Harper had poured her soul into the Blue Bell Diner for over 2 decades, a weathered beacon in rural East Texas. She'd weathered brutal years and tougher folks, but oh, the miracles she'd glimpsed. They never came cheap, though. Most mornings, she stood behind the counter, sleeves shoved up, apron dusted with flour like a badge of honor, waiting for the bleary-eyed farmers and ranchers to shuffle in, chasing coffee to jolt them awake. The sun lingered low, too shy to burn off the dew, and the air carried the brittle scent of parched earth and fading dreams. Maggie's hands danced their familiar rhythm, pouring, sliding, wiping, but her heart. It drifted straight to Sarah Miller, perched quietly at the counter's far end. Sarah was a constant, polite, grateful, but lately, so tired. Every few days, she'd slip in for a cheap coffee and whatever Maggie could sneak her, stale muffins, a spare biscuit, nothing grand, just enough to fend off the hollow ache. Maggie had stopped asking for payment long ago. She saw it in Sarah's tight smile, the way pride wrestled with every bite she accepted. That morning, Sarah hunched over a chipped mug, clutching it like a lifeline. She looked like sleep had abandoned her, and Maggie knew that bone-deep weariness, it wasn't from restless nights, but from stitching a crumbling life together with nothing but grit. Just coffee today? Maggie's voice softened, already guessing the answer. Sarah's lips curved faintly. Just coffee. Maggie topped her off, watching those trembling hands. Hunger? Worry? Both, probably. What Maggie didn't yet grasp was the scene that had played out hours earlier, Sarah, alone at her kitchen table, spreading out her last $2,000, every dime she had left. The drought had choked her pasture into dust, and her horses, her father's living legacy, were fading fast without feed. That money could have bought one last load of hay, a fleeting lifeline. But Sarah had paced her land, counting splintered fence posts, tallying losses, and deep down, she felt the ranch slipping away. Maggie would learn soon enough. Then, the bell above the door chimed, a sound Maggie loved, but this time it dragged in a hush that prickled her skin. A man stepped inside, tension trailing him like a shadow. Worn jeans, a faded military cap, a jacket patched with time, he moved with a limp, not from idleness, but from a wound etched deep. His face was sharp, eyes sunken, beard scruffy, and he barely spoke as he eased onto a stool 3 seats from Sarah. Coffee, black, he muttered, voice rough as gravel. Maggie poured silently. She knew people, knew this man carried pride like armor, dented but unbroken. Sarah glanced up, her gaze lingering. Maggie caught it, those narrowed eyes, not judging, but seeing. That 1,000-yard stare. Her cousin had brought it back from Afghanistan, a silent scar of war. She understood. How's the job hunt, Tom? Maggie ventured, keeping it gentle. He shrugged, a half-defeated gesture. Warehouse said no. My legs, liability, they called it. Maggie's stomach twisted. Liability, as if he hadn't paid enough in blood and bone. Sarah's grip tightened on her mug. Tom sipped slowly, then dropped a bombshell. We got the eviction notice. Maggie's rag stilled. Eviction? He nodded, jaw tight. $22,000 or we're out. No words came, not from Maggie, not from Sarah. My wife's pulling doubles at the hospital, Tom added, voice barely a whisper. Baby's sick, though. We're out of options. The silence crashed down, thick and suffocating. Maggie's ribs ached with it. Did Sarah feel it too? She shifted, something inside her snapping loose. Then, a question pierced the quiet. You served. Sarah's voice was steady, direct. Tom turned, startled. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. My cousin was 10th Mountain, she said. Toughest group out there, he swore. A faint smile cracked Tom's face. Good unit. Maggie held her breath. Something was brewing, something raw and real. Then Sarah moved, slow and sure, reaching into her coat. Maggie's eyes widened as she slid out an envelope, thick, edges frayed, and set it on the counter. I have $2,000, Sarah said. Tom blinked. What? For feed, originally, she pressed on, unflinching. For my horses. But your family, your baby, needs it more. Maggie's heart lurched. Good heavens. Tom stared, then shook his head. I can't take that. We don't even know each other. You served, Sarah countered, simple as truth. My dad said we owe veterans more than we could ever repay. But it's yours. Tom's voice cracked. You need it. Her lips quivered. I'll manage. Might sell another horse. Maggie couldn't hold back. Sarah, are you sure? What good's money if I let someone lose everything? Sarah shot back, eyes blazing. Tom's hand hesitated, then closed around the envelope. I don't know what to say. Just get back on your feet, she urged. Promise me. I swear it, he whispered, voice thick. Maggie spun to refill the coffee pot, hiding the tears stinging her eyes. After Tom left, Sarah lingered, sipping in silence. That was your feed money, wasn't it? Maggie asked, already knowing. Sarah nodded. What now? I'll call around, Sarah murmured. Maybe someone's got spare hay, or work. Maggie sighed, aching to fix it but knowing hope was a fragile thread. Later, she watched Sarah's truck fade down the road, the sun sinking low, shadows stretching across the hills. That quiet sacrifice. It rattled Maggie to her core. This wasn't the end, it couldn't be. The next morning, the blue bell felt off, no buzz, no chatter, just an eerie stillness seeping in. Wiping down the coffee machine, Maggie saw Sarah's face, shoulders slumped, eyes resolute. That kind of giving carved a mark you couldn't erase. Only 2 regulars trickled in, and Maggie's gaze kept flicking to the door, praying Sarah would appear. Then the phone rang, Roy from the feed store. Seen Sarah? He asked. Not sure, Maggie replied, pulse quickening. Why? Had her down for hay, but she backed out. Got surplus from old man Bill, could cut her a deal. Tell her if you see her. Maggie hung up, dread tightening her chest. Stepping outside, she squinted toward Miller Ranch. Dust shimmered faintly in the distance. Something was happening, something big. At the ranch, Sarah woke to her horse's hungry cries, a sound that clawed at her soul. Boots on, she stepped into the dawn, steeling herself to sell them, her father's legacy, his sweat-soaked mornings. The porch groaned as she scattered the last crumbs of grain, whispering, I'll figure it out, to the mare's hopeful eyes. But did she believe it? Not anymore. Then, gravel crunched. She turned, expecting Roy, but froze. 3 military trucks lumbered toward her, dust swirling like a storm. Her heart pounded as the lead truck halted, and a man stepped out, tall, uniformed, metals gleaming. "Sarah Miller?" he asked, voice firm. "Yes," she stammered. "What's happening?" "Colonel Richard Beckett," he said, extending a hand. "We need land for training, signal and comms testing. Your property was recommended." "My property?" She gaped at her crumbling fences. "Yes, ma'am. Quiet, isolated, perfect." "Who recommended me?" He glanced at his notepad. "Tom Wilson." Her breath hitched. "Tom. He's with our reintegration program," the colonel added. "Said your land's ideal." Sarah's mind spun, the man she'd saved, now saving her. "We'll pay $5,000 to use it," he continued. "Won't disturb your animals." $5,000. Her knees wobbled. Feed, survival, a lifeline. As soldiers unloaded hay, golden, fragrant bales, tears pricked her eyes. "How did you know?" she whispered. The colonel smiled. "Kindness has a way of coming back, Miss Miller." And it did, oh, how it did. The ranch pulsed with life again, horses fed, hope reborn. Maggie arrived later, wide-eyed. "Sarah, what's all this?" Sarah grinned, heart full. "Proof that giving matters, Maggie." "It matters." Sarah stood frozen, her mind spinning like a windmill in a storm. Could this really be happening? The man she'd handed her last $2,000 to, the one who'd sat hunched at the diner counter, his voice raw with despair, muttering about no job, no stability, had somehow sent the military to her doorstep. Dust swirled around the rumbling trucks, and her heart thudded against her ribs. What in heaven's name was going on? "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice quivering like a leaf in the breeze. The colonel, a sturdy figure with a gentle smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, stepped closer. "We're prepared to offer $5,000 for the use of your land," he said, his tone steady and kind. "We'll keep to ourselves, handle everything, and won't lay a finger on your animals or structures." Sarah's knees wobbled, and she locked them tight to keep from collapsing right there in the dirt. $5,000, her breath caught as the number sank in, enough to buy feed, to keep the ranch breathing, maybe even to dare to hope again. She swallowed hard, her throat dry as the cracked earth beneath her boots. That would help a lot," she managed, her words thick with unshed tears. "Good," the colonel replied, his voice bright with approval. "Would you mind showing me the property? We'd like to set up along the southern ridge." Still dazed, Sarah nodded and led the way, her boots crunching on the gravel as if in a dream. More trucks roared up behind them, their engines growling like promises. Men in crisp uniforms spilled out, unloading crates and equipment with swift precision. One soldier passed her, his young face lit with a respectful nod, his arms full of long communication poles and field radios that gleamed in the sunlight. What were they building out here, she wondered, her pulse racing. Then a voice cut through the air, sharp and clear, "Colonel, we've offloaded the special delivery." The colonel gave a quick nod. "Excellent. Miss Miller, would you mind showing us your barn? If the weather turns, we might need indoor storage." Her heart pounded louder as she led him toward the barn, its weathered red planks sagging under years of neglect. She gripped the rusty handles and yanked the doors open, and stopped dead. Inside, stacked high along the side wall, were hay bales. Dozens of them, fresh and golden, their sweet, earthy scent flooding her senses. *K. For my horses, her voice broke as she whispered, what is this?" The colonel's smile grew warmer. "Just part of the arrangement. We believe in leaving places better than we found them." Sarah spun to face him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "But how did you know I needed feed?" she demanded, her voice trembling with awe. His gaze softened, a twinkle of mischief in his eyes. "There's someone better suited to explain that. Right on cue, a sleek black SUV purred into the driveway, its tires whispering against the gravel. Sarah stepped outside, her breath hitching as the back door swung open. Out climbed Tom Wilson, but oh, how he'd changed. Gone was the weary, slumped figure from the diner. He stood tall, his limp barely a shadow, dressed in a crisp uniform with a badge glinting on his chest like a star. Who was this man? "Hello, Sarah," he said, his voice steady, a soft smile tugging at his lips. She crossed her arms, her brow furrowing. "You look different," she said, suspicion lacing her tone. He nodded, calm as ever. "May we talk inside?" In the kitchen, the rich aroma of coffee curled through the air as Sarah brewed a pot out of sheer habit, her hands shaky on the old percolator. She didn't speak until the mugs were steaming on the table, their warmth a small comfort. "You weren't just a veteran in trouble, were you?" she asked, her voice sharp with quiet accusation. Tom shook his head, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering honesty. "I am a veteran, but not without resources. Yes, my family was facing eviction, but not because we had no help. The system, it's too slow, Sarah, painfully slow." She stared at him, her mind a whirlwind. So it wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full story either. Tom slid a folder across the table, its edges crisp and official. "I work with the Mercer Foundation," he said. "We assist struggling veterans, but we also watch for people like you, people who give everything to help others, even when they've got nothing left." "You were testing me," Sarah whispered, a pang of hurt flickering in her chest. "No," Tom replied, his voice gentle but firm. "We were observing. And you passed something far bigger than a test. No one can fake character, Sarah, yours shines like gold." Meanwhile, Maggie Harper couldn't shake the restless ache in her chest. She didn't usually close the diner midday, but after the morning rush faded and the Texas heat pressed down like a smothering quilt, she scrawled, "Back in 30, on a sign, hung it on the door, and locked up tight. She had to see Sarah, now. The gravel sang under her truck tires as she drove east, the road twisting past brittle pastures and splintered fences until Miller Ranch loomed ahead. The red barn clung to its last flakes of paint, but, wait, there were military trucks, equipment buzzing with activity, and horses chomping on fresh golden hay. Maggie's heart leapt. What was happening here? She parked at the gate and stepped out, but before she could knock, Sarah met her halfway, boots caked with dust, hands stained with grain. "Maggie!" Sarah exclaimed, her face lighting up with surprise. "What are you doing all the way out here?" "I could ask you the same thing." Maggie shot back, her eyes darting to the trucks. "Is that the army?" "Not exactly," Sarah said with a shy grin, brushing sweaty hair from her forehead. "Come inside, I'll explain everything." The house welcomed them with the scent of fresh coffee and the soft glow of sunlight filtering through worn curtains, a quiet warmth born of hard years. Maggie sank into a chair at the kitchen table, and without a word, Sarah slid a piece of paper toward her. Maggie snatched it up, her eyes racing over the text. $5000, she gasped, her voice a whisper of wonder. Sarah nodded, slow and deliberate. "And that's not all." She spilled the whole story, Tom at the diner, the envelope she'd given him, the soldiers who'd appeared like a miracle, and the hay stacked in the barn like a gift from above. Maggie hung on every word, her heart swelling. "And this Mercer Foundation?" Maggie asked, her curiosity blazing. Sarah rose and fetched a folder from the counter, its pages crisp with purpose. "They help veterans," she said, "but they also seek out people who help others quietly, expecting nothing in return." Maggie turned the folder over in her hands, her mind reeling. "So this wasn't random?" "No," Sarah said, her voice soft but sure. "It was intentional, every bit of it." Maggie leaned back, stunned. She pictured Sarah at the diner, sliding that envelope across the counter with steady hands and a fierce heart. She'd had no clue anyone was watching, no idea her kindness would spark this. You know, Maggie said, her voice thick, I've spent my life feeding folks, hearing their tales, but I've never seen anything like this. Sarah's smile was weary but warm. Neither have I. Just then, another vehicle rolled up, a sleek black SUV, its shine cutting through the dust. The women stepped onto the porch, and out climbed a man in a dark suit, tall and broad-shouldered, his tie loose but his presence towering. Miss Miller, he said, his voice calm yet commanding. Sarah nodded, wary. I'm James Mercer. Maggie's breath caught, asterisk the founder, asterisk. I believe you've spoken with Tom and Colonel Beckett, he went on. Yes, Sarah said, steadying herself. Is something wrong? Mercer shook his head. No, quite the opposite. I prefer to meet the people we invest in myself. He stepped onto the porch, his eyes sweeping over the ranch, the tired barn, the mended fences, the field stirring with new life. My father was a horseman, he said, his voice softening. Before we lost it all, I slept in barns like that as a boy. Sarah nodded, unsure what to say, her heart thumping. I was homeless once, Mercer continued, his tone steady but heavy with memory. Someone helped me when I had nothing. Years later, I built the foundation to repay that kindness. But here's what I've learned, people who give when they're hurting, they get the weight of a gift. He turned to her, his gaze piercing. And you, Sarah Miller, gave more than money, you gave dignity. You saw a struggling veteran and didn't hesitate. That's rare. Sarah's voice shook. I just didn't want someone to fall through the cracks. Mercer's smile was pure warmth. Exactly. Then he handed her another envelope. What's this? She asked, her hands trembling. A contract. Mercer replied. We're proposing something bigger than a rental. The Foundation's launching a pilot program, therapeutic equine therapy for veterans with PTSD, physical trauma, emotional scars, and your ranch is perfect. Sarah stared at the envelope, its weight sinking into her palms. You want to lease my land, she whispered. 10 acres. Mercer said. We'll build facilities, bring licensed therapists, veterans from across the state. All you do is care for the horses and guide sessions, if you're willing. Maggie watched as Sarah tore it open, her eyes darting over the figures, monthly pay for the land, wages for her time, enough to rebuild everything she'd lost. Sarah looked up, dazed. This is a beginning. Mercer said, his voice ringing with promise. A sacred silence fell, too vast for words. Maggie blinked back tears. Sarah's quiet giving had brought her here, not to charity, but to purpose. After Mercer drove off, Sarah sank onto the porch steps, the contract clutched tight. Maggie sat beside her. You're not just getting help, Maggie said softly. You're building something new. Sarah nodded, her eyes distant but bright. I think this is what the ranch was always meant for. Maggie grinned, her voice breaking. And your dad? He'd be so proud right now. The sun dipped low, painting the fields gold. Soldiers moved quietly in the distance, setting up camp. Horses nickered, content with full bellies. For the first time in years, Sarah's land pulsed with life. Hope had crept back, not with fanfare, but with the soft crunch of boots and a promise kept. Days later, the ranch buzzed like a small, orderly base, yet its peace held firm. The military presence seemed to revive it. Maggie returned, a box of warm cinnamon rolls in hand, and found Sarah by the barn, watching a young soldier stroke her father's old mare. You're feeding them sugar, aren't you? Sarah teased, a smirk dancing on her lips. The soldier laughed, blushing. Ma'am, I plead the fifth. Maggie stepped up, offering the rolls. Sarah took one, chuckling. I could devour 6, but I'll start with 1. They sat under the oak tree's shade, watching soldiers mend fences, clear brush, adjust poles. Can you believe they've fixed more in days than hired hands could in a year? Maggie marveled. Sarah shook her head, still awestruck. And they won't let me pay a cent. It's not charity, Maggie said gently. It's gratitude. Sarah gazed at her rough hands, etched with years of toil. It doesn't feel real. I was rationing hay, wondering which horses I'd lose to keep the lights on. Now, a lease, a salary, a purpose. Maggie laid a hand over hers. You were seen, Sarah. Isn't that what we all want, to be seen when we do what's right? Under the vast Texas sky, Sarah knew it was true. Her quiet kindness hadn't just saved a stranger, it had saved her too. A voice rang out from the weathered red barn, cutting through the still Texas morning. It was Tom. He strode toward them with a stride that was, oh, how remarkable, not quite the limp Maggie once knew, yet not fully healed either. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that practically shimmered in the golden sunlight, and Maggie's heart leapt as she noticed the younger soldiers casting respectful glances his way, even without the colonel nearby. Can you imagine? She marveled silently. He's not just a veteran now, he's someone they look up to. Morning, he called, his voice as warm and steady as a summer breeze across the plains. Morning, Sarah and Maggie chimed back together, their voices weaving into a harmony born of countless shared moments. Tom knelt down in the dewy grass, his worn boots sinking slightly as he placed a small, unassuming envelope between them. Sarah's brow creased, her hazel eyes narrowing. What's this? She asked, her tone laced with a curiosity that made the air feel electric. My promise, Tom replied, his gaze unwavering, deep as the roots of the ancient oaks dotting the ranch. I told you I'd pay you back. Tom, Sarah began, her voice catching, but he raised a hand, gentle yet firm, stopping her mid-breath. I know what you told me, he said softly, his words carrying the weight of a vow. And I meant what I said. But the foundation, they insist we honor our commitments. It's part of the program. She hesitated, her fingers brushing the envelope's edge, feeling its fragile promise. Before she could protest, Tom added, or, if you'd rather, donate it. There's a veterans shelter in San Antonio that just opened its doors, can you believe it, and they could use the funds. Sarah's face broke into a smile so radiant it could have lit the darkest barn corner. That feels right, she said, her voice trembling with emotion, thick as honey. Maggie watched, her chest tightening with awe. What a moment! So small, yet so heavy with meaning, quiet dignity flowed between them like a river winding through the plains, the kind of grace you'd miss if you weren't truly looking. How many would do that, she wondered. She could have kept it for herself, but here she is, giving again. Later, Colonel Beckett beckoned Sarah for a walk across the south pasture, the very spot slated for the therapy facility. Maggie trailed behind, her curiosity buzzing like cicadas in the heat. The colonel's voice painted a vivid dream, modular buildings with cool air whispering through them, an indoor riding arena echoing with hoofbeats, serene sleeping quarters for veterans seeking solace, and a team, therapists, case workers, horse trainers, all brought to life by Mercer's Foundation. Imagine that, Maggie thought, her breath catching. A sanctuary of healing, rising right here on Sarah's soil. We've tested this in Colorado, the colonel said, his tone as steady as a soldier's march. But Texas? It's different. The land's older, steeped in stories. The quiet sinks deeper here. Veterans feel it. Sarah nodded, her eyes tracing the endless horizon where the sky kissed the earth. So do the horses, she murmured, her voice a soft hymn to the land she loved. Maggie saw it in Sarah's face, she wasn't just nodding politely, she felt it, down to her very core. Doesn't she know this place like her own soul? What would you need from me? Sarah asked, her voice steady but her pulse racing beneath her calm exterior. Your care for the animals, your presence with the veterans, and your honesty when things falter, the colonel replied. We don't want perfect, we want real. Sarah's gaze swept the pasture, her father's legacy unfurling before her like a well-worn map. "You'll build all this?" she whispered, as if afraid to hope too loudly. The colonel nodded. "And sustain it for at least 5 years, with your blessing." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward, boots crunching on the dry earth, and bent to pluck a smooth stone from the ground, rolling it in her palm like a piece of her past. Maggie watched, knowing this wasn't just about plans, it was about her father, about whether this dream honored his memory. Could this be what he'd have wanted? At last, Sarah turned, her voice as solid as the stone she held. "My dad used to say this land had a purpose," she said. "For years, I thought it died with him. Now I see it was just waiting for its moment." The colonel's smile broke through like dawn over the hills. "We'd be honored to help you bring it to life." They walked back to the house in a silence that felt holy, and when Sarah signed the lease, it wasn't just ink on paper, it was the birth of something sacred, a quiet miracle unfolding. Maggie joined her on the porch later, the distant laughter from the tents mingling with the shuffle of hooves and the wind's gentle song through the cedars. "You know," Maggie said, her voice soft as a whisper, "some folks wait forever for a sign. You didn't wait, you acted." Sarah stayed quiet, reaching into her coat pocket to pull out that original envelope, the one she'd handed Tom at the diner. Empty now, but oh, what it meant. "I was terrified," she confessed, her voice breaking like a dam giving way. "I thought giving it away would finish me." Maggie's eyes welled up, tears glistening like dew. "Turns out it was the start of everything," she said, her voice thick with wonder. The ceremony wasn't lavish, no flashing cameras, no reporters, just folding chairs beneath a vast Texas sky, banners swaying between fence posts, and a podium borrowed from the high school. But to Maggie, it was a celebration grander than any holiday. Flags fluttered above the pasture where the equine therapy center would rise, a haven where veterans could find peace, not through pills or chaos, but through the steady trust of a horse, through breath and earth and stillness. Maggie stood at the back, arms crossed, eyes locked on Sarah. She wore jeans, a crisp button-up, and her father's old belt buckle, but she stood taller than ever, not just in height, but in spirit. She's more than a rancher now, Maggie thought. She's a keeper of something holy. Colonel Beckett spoke first, his voice plain yet humbled by the moment. "This program isn't about fixing people," he said. "It's about making room for healing, and that room wouldn't exist without Sarah Miller." The applause was brief, respectful, warm as a midday sun. Then Tom took the mic, dressed simply in a gray shirt and jeans. Maggie saw the veterans in the crowd straighten up, drawn to his quiet strength. "I told Sarah I'd pay her back," he began, his smile tender. "But honestly, I never could, not fully, because what she gave me, gave us all, was bigger than money." His voice cracked, just a touch. "She gave dignity when no one was looking." Sarah held steady, but Maggie caught the way her fingers gripped her unread speech tighter. With a nod from Mercer, standing unobtrusively in a black suit, Sarah stepped up. She didn't read the paper. She faced the crowd, then the land. "This place was my father's," she started, her voice firm as rain on parched earth. "After he passed, I didn't know what to do with it. I fed the horses, patched the fences, but I was waiting, for what, I didn't know." A murmur rippled through the listeners, soft as a breeze. "Then I met a stranger at a diner," she went on, "with $2,000 in my pocket for feed. I don't know why, but I gave it away. I thought I'd lost it all that day," she said, unflinching. "Turns out, I'd planted a seed." She glanced at the barn, the new posts marking the pasture. "Now this ranch has a purpose my father would have cherished." She stepped back, and for a heartbeat, no one clapped, they didn't want to shatter the spell. Then the crowd rose, applause swelling like a river after rain. Maggie stayed to fold chairs, lingering in the barn as Sarah walked the pasture with Tom and the colonel. "Funny, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. She turned, "Mercer." "Funny how?" she asked. He nodded at Sarah. How those with the least to spare give the most. Maggie grinned. Not funny to me, it's familiar. Mercer raised a brow, intrigued. 20 years at the diner, she said, I've seen folks hurting yet choosing kindness. That's the truest bravery. He nodded. Then no, this wouldn't have happened without you. Me? Maggie's eyes widened. You kept the doors open, kept her fed, saw her when no one else did. That's everything. He handed her a card. If you ever want to join the foundation, advisory, volunteer, we'd be lucky. Maggie slipped it into her apron. First, let's keep those horses fed. They laughed, and later, on the porch, Sarah and Maggie sat as the air lightened. The contract was signed, the horses content, the ranch alive. Ever think, Sarah mused, that giving your last dollar is when life gives back? Maggie nodded. Only if your heart's in it. The sun dipped low, no fanfare, just two women watching the world settle. A mare whinnied softly from the barn, as if she knew, hope had crept back, steady and quiet, in the hands of those who give from the soul. Sarah Miller's story hits me hard, it's a raw, emotional wake-up call about what really matters in life. Her choice to hand over her last $2,000 to Tom Wilson, a veteran drowning in his own struggles, isn't just kindness, it's gutsy, reckless hope. I'm in awe of her. In a society obsessed with self-preservation, where we clutch our wallets and scroll past suffering, Sarah's sacrifice screams courage. It's the kind of lifestyle I want to live, one that says people are worth more than money. Tom's turnaround chokes me up too. From a broken man to someone standing tall, respected by soldiers, it shows how much we all crave a chance to matter. I feel this deep in my bones, we're starving for connection, for someone to believe in us. Sarah gave him that, and it's beautiful. Then there's the community, Maggie's loyalty, Mercer's nod to Sarah's grit. It's a gut punch of truth, we're stronger together. I'm tired of the every man for himself nonsense. This story ignites something in me, anger at our apathy, hope for change. Kindness isn't weak, it's a wildfire. We need more Sarahs, more Toms, more us. In our darkest hours, kindness finds a way, often in the stillest places. Some don't seek praise, they just want no one to hunger today. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. You might forget this tale, but without retelling, it fades. Subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where justice shines, kindness endures, and no quiet hero is lost.